day that matter most. Check out the Blaze Radio Network at theblaze.com/radio with original shows like Buck Sexton, The Morning Blaze with Doc Thompson, Pat and Stu, and Jay Severin. Or, if you need something to hold in your hands, subscribe to the Blaze magazine. So basically, anywhere you need to go, you can take the truth with you by taking the Blaze with you. This is the Blaze. Truth lives here. So just to recap, anywhere you need to go, you can take the truth with you by taking the Blaze with you. Find out all the ways at theblaze.com.
More people now being monitored in Spain for Ebola. We have the report from the Blaze Radio's Brad James.
3 more people being watched closely in a Madrid hospital, raising the number to 16 being monitored for Ebola symptoms there. A nursing assistant with Ebola is in stable condition. The government in Spain saying none of the 16 in quarantine have shown any symptoms. The nurse with Ebola got the virus from treating 2 Spanish priests near West Africa. Both priests died.
That's the Blaze Radio's Brad James. The Fort Hood shooter writing a letter to the Pope. The Blaze Radio's Greg Moore tells us why.
Major Nidal Hassan penning a letter to Pope Francis, making it clear that he supports jihad. Fox News obtaining a copy of the letter Hassan addressed to the pontiff. Hassan is the former Army psychiatrist convicted of killing 13 people and wounding 31 others at Fort Hood in 2009. The letter goes on to praise Islamic extremists for their willingness to fight for Allah. Fox News says Hassan wrote another letter in which he asked to join ISIS.
That's the Blaze Radio's Greg Moore. The First Lady on the campaign trail and forgetting the name of the candidate for whom she's campaigning. Here's the story from the Blaze Radio's Chris Vermillion.
First Lady Michelle Obama campaigning in Iowa for Democratic Senate candidate Bruce Braley, getting a little lost in the name department.
Or you can go to vote.brucebailey.com. That's vote.brucebailey.com. Or even better, you can... Braley, what did I say?
The First Lady also claiming that Braley served in the Marine Corps, which he did not. I'm Chris Vermillion, the Blaze News.
Whenever you think of a street dance competition, if you ever do think of a street dance competition, chances are you don't picture one of the combatants to be a Mormon missionary. That might change forever when you see the video at theblaze.com. I'm Jim Parisi with news on the Blaze Radio Network. Truth lives here.
Welcome inside the Parisi Palace at 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. My show is predicated on the 4 L's: leadership, love, life, and lineage, and the story of real music made by real musicians. Diaspora, the actual transfer of slaves from Africa to the Middle Islands, was endemic of the cutthroat policies that empires have and still have. What kept the slaves together spiritually was the drum and the rhythms that came from the drum. Let the body dance, the mambo or the bolero or the Afro Cuban or bebop. My guest today is one of the most rhythmic percussive pianists in the world. His sound is unique and he's been around for the last 70 years. He came of age with Bird and Duke, Basie and Ellington before cutting albums as a leader. What does it take to be a good leader? Knowing the history of the music you're playing and creating is being a good leader. And my guest has always had major threads of his homeland in his music. He has been traveling to Africa to listen and hear the chants of the natives, along with the elephants and lions and scorched earth, where all man originated. He plays the Niger Mambo with Big Black in the Loft downtown, along with Thelonious Monk and Barry Harris and Ray Bryant. Catch up on some sleep, shake off the demons, and get back on the bandstand. Now he's paying tribute to longtime friend and collaborator Melba Liston in a concert that will showcase her wide-ranging capacity, dedication to those who came before her, and a willingness to be herself. Blue Moses has surely come. Randy Weston, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to talk to you, my man.
Yeah, what a beautiful introduction. I thank you.
I have did you catch that introductory little 30-second thing we ran there? Uhuru?
I sure did.
That to me is one of the most ferocious. Now that's Langston Hughes, right? With doing poetry on that, is that right?
Yeah, yep. Langston did the poetry on that, and he did the lyrics on African Lady.
How did you link up with Langston originally? Because again, just talking to, it's just such an honor to talk to you. But the more I listen to your compositions and to your albums, the more I realize that, as Booker T. Jones told me, being a great leader means that you put yourself on the same level as everybody else in the band. It seems like that's what you do consistently. I mean, you're not into being at the forefront. How did you get Langston? How did you connect with Langston originally?
I was blessed to be up in the Berkshires, up in Massachusetts, at the Music Inn. And Professor Marshall Stearns, he brought some incredible people up there, and I was there at the same time. That's where I met Olatunji, I met Candido, I met Mahalia Jackson. You know, I met Langston Hughes, I met Dr. Willis James, who specialized in field cry hollows, you know. So I met all these incredible minds, but that's where I originally met Langston Hughes.
You know, I wanted to just, you're somebody that's been traveling to the country of Africa, the birthplace of man, for many decades. And I just wonder what your take is on Ebola. And, I mean, I know that people are scared and actually, you know, just looking at it, you know, from this point of view, it does come across as something startling and it's taking lives. But I just wanted to get your perspective on if you think that there's, you know, how it's going to play out and how Africa, you know, if it's going to be able to handle it and how long it will take to corral it.
Well, number one, you know, everything functions on Mother Nature, you know, and we have what we call, I think, gravity, you see. So African civilizations, you know, they've lasted longer than any other civilizations in the history of the world, over 10,000 years of history of Africa, you see. But Africa was on the top, and what's going on top, Mother Nature brings down to the bottom, you see. So we suffered, you know, what happened to Africa, but in the very beginning, we had thousands of years of civilization coming out of ancient Nile Valley, coming out of ancient Egypt, the black people of Africa, everything from music to monarchy to food, you name it, you see. So when you get involved with the ancients, and in this country, the oldest people, my father always told me, be around the old people. He said they may have not been to school, but they have wisdom. They remember when the African people were united, going back to slavery days and going back to Africa itself, you know. So I was so blessed because I had people in the neighborhood. My father hung out with Max Rhodes, and so many. My mom, you know, they were deep into African culture, and they lived that way. They didn't talk about it. They lived it. Mom and Pop would bring music in the house. Could be all kinds of music. Not like today. You know, you hear the blues, the jazz, the black church on Sunday, opera. That's where we all grew up like that, see. So I wanted to find out where this came from. And my father always said, you got to go to Africa. You got to go all the way back. You better understand me and your mom. And you better understand what happened to civilization, you know. And at the same time, we were taken away, but that was part of the plan, part of the master plan. And what's so ironic, wherever we've been taken, we create some original music.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Brazil or Cuba or Venezuela, Puerto Rico or Mississippi, whatever, you know. So when you look on that level, because the one thing I learned, Mother Nature's in charge of what's going on, you know. And sometimes we get carried away feeling we make all the decisions. But no, it doesn't work like that, you know. Yeah.
I just really love the way you articulated it. Would you consider guys like Monk, got your peers, Bird, and those guys, were they also very respectful of the elders? I love the idea of saying, okay, they may not have gone to school, but the wisdom and the philosophical viewpoint and the understanding of the history of how solidarity came to be, would you say that your peers fell into that boat as well?
They were musical prophets that were set down. You see, because when you really get deep into what happened to African people here in America, I just try to imagine what it must have been in that boat. Our ancestors were crammed in this boat for months across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, people today don't stop and think about that, you see. But I'm in that boat all the time. Now, how they taking this country, couldn't speak no languages, taking it completely away from other cultures, but made music out of everything. A basin, a table, a trombone, whatever. I mean, that comes back from ancient African civilization because African music is as old as Africa itself. So the whole concept of music came out of Africa. And it was created to be in touch with the universe, with the galaxies, and with the Creator, you see. So when you get involved in that world, you become very humble, and you understand that Duke Ellington was a high master, monk, Charlie Parker, Dizzy, all these people. They created music, and the music connected with the culture of African people, whether it was the blues, whether it was, you name it, So when you look at that, you say, wow. So now who was Duke Ellington? Who was Dizzy Gillespie? Who was Count Basie? These are spiritual human beings, who brought us beauty at a time we were going through a lot of pain. And without that music, without that we call jazz and blues, and we would never survive. But that music picked us up, and we were in trouble, you see.
Mm-hmm. I want to read you a quote. I did an interview with Babatunde Lee, great percussionist. He said,
"Sure, I know Babatunde.
Yeah, beautiful cat." He goes, "When my band played the Watts Jazz Festival a couple years ago, I had a chance to see Big Black playing a duo with Randy Weston. It brought me back. It brought me back to a time when that was really going on and people were hearing it live all the time. I used to go up to San Francisco and see Black at the Keystone Corner and the Both And. It was so beautiful to see Weston and Black connect like they did. It was like no time had passed at all, that they had been playing every day. It made me very happy and very sad because people don't get a chance to see that today the way we did back then. It's so important to one's mind, body, and spirit because when one's mind, body, and spirit are all engaged, that's healthy. When mind, body, and spirit are not all engaged, it's a feeling of dis-ease. When you put that together, it's disease, dis-ease. But when he painted that picture of the idea of, obviously you and Black go back decades, but the idea that you probably hadn't seen each other in several years and were able to get up on the stage, and that soul, the spiritual soul, the idea of leaving your physical body and playing that music of the heavens, just put me in, just let me marinate in that, Weston. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, it's like we love our ancestors, not just our grandma and grandma here, but all the way back. We truly love them. And when you truly love your ancestors, I mean it spiritually, really. That's what happens with the Black church. That's what happened with the blues. All this music, we have what we call this ancestral memory. And the way we create music comes out of African music. But it's so incredible, so much diversity, that it comes out in different ways of personalities. The difference between a Count Basie or Nat King Cole or Art Tatum,
Mm-hmm.
They take that same piano, and what they do with that piano, they get a completely different sound, a completely different way to approach the instrument, could be a fast swallow. So all of us, Big Black and myself, we always respect the ancestors. We always respect the elders.
So
up until today, when I listen to Louis Armstrong, I'm getting a lesson about our music because they were closer to Africa and they approached music in a spiritual way. They created music with that African pulse, you see, and it was there. And we've only been here a few hundred years compared to older civilizations in the world, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at that, you say, wow. So when I heard Monk, I heard ancient Africa. People don't understand what I was talking about. But I did because he had a sound on that piano. Nobody had a sound like Monk on the piano.
But it goes all the way.
Very ancient sound.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm going to try to listen to Monk more in that realm because he has had a resurgence in popularity. But I really want to listen to that going back to the scorched, to the deserts, to the people.
Yeah, he and also his mother was a gospel singer. So he played 2 years of gospel piano and his mother traveling all around. So the black church is into the music. We all went to the black church because our ancestors, they say, hey, first is the creator. And after that, you do whatever you got to do. So we had to be in that. We had to be in that church every Sunday when you got on your short pants and But that's the difference. It's a story of Africa and what Africa has contributed to the planet, which has been omitted. But sooner or later, it's coming to understand that we're all connected. But the oldest music is Africa itself. And what you hear in Henry Jackson, or Louis Armstrong, or Billie Holiday, you hear that spirit. It's very deep because it describes this incredible continent that is so diverse, and we all come from Africa. So, so that's why I understood. I first heard Monk, my true love, Jake, was Coleman Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
When he did Body and Soul, man, it's still up until this minute one of the greatest works of music I've ever heard. And to me, amazing. So I used to follow Coleman Hawkins. First time I heard Monk with Coleman Hawkins. First time I heard Ruby My Dear with Coleman Hawkins. Nobody got a sound on tenor saxophone like Coleman Hawkins. Nobody. And to hear those two guys together, it was not just what they played, but it's a sound, that spiritual sound they get out of their instruments that make them so royal and so beautiful and influence so many people, you see.
Do you, I talked to a guy, Baba Ken Okulolu, who played with Fela Kuti, and he talked about the village he grew up in and the beautiful scenic, just seeing animals by the waterside and in the forest, and so many of these spirituals, the way that the language of Africa through the drum and the music. And he really, you said something earlier about Mother Nature, where Africa was at the top and then now it's sort of at the bottom. It's sort of hurting now through Grandmother Earth. But the question is, do you believe that, what Baba Ken said was that, with the oil companies, they've just ravaged the natural beauty of Africa. And I wanted to know if man has played a role in bringing down, to put Africa down now at the bottom.
Of course, absolutely. When the people from the north came to Africa and discovered all this riches, Africa has everything, diversity of people, of music, of minerals, diamonds, you name it. This is the richest place on the planet Earth. It's the richest in Mother Nature. And in Africa, what happens is this: the traditional people capture the sound based upon where they live. So when you got the Sahara Desert, the musicians there, they're going to play music about the Sahara. If you got the Berbers up in the mountains, they're going to describe the mountains, So what happens, the music comes out of Africa itself. Africa is magic. Africa is mysterious. Africa is diverse, you see. So the musician, why you hear that? Because the musicians describe the music of the continent itself. And that's why you have such a diversity, because Mother Nature created Africa. It's our oldest, and the diversity of people and music, man, it's mind-blowing. So when the people are taken away and we mix up together, you got all these rhythms and sounds that come out in different places. It could be Kansas City, it could be Brooklyn, it could be Rio de Janeiro, I don't know. Wherever you find African people, this is what happens.
That's so big. Randy Weston is just, you are painting, and rightfully so, you're painting this gorgeous picture of the regionalism of music when the African, when blacks came to the States, because they created regional pockets of sound. Nathan Davis, the great horn player, told me you could pick up the radio outside Kansas City. You can still do that and drive down. You got a certain rhythms in Kansas City. You got Chicago Shuffle. You got New Orleans.
Jacob, just simply learn the truth about our planet Earth. Everybody comes out of Africa. Africa is the oldest civilization. Everything came out of Africa, and people traveled, and Mother Nature painted them different colors based upon the weather. The way we look is because of this Mother Nature. Okay, to take you from the sun, you got to be black. If you're going to go north, you got to be a different color. You got to open it. And when we realize Mother Nature is the true orchestra leader of this planet, you see.
And all the indigenous instruments that were created there as well. I got to get you come down to the Musical Instrument Museum to perform in Phoenix. I don't know if you've heard about that place or not, but it is.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it was a philanthropic donation by the CEO of Target, and it showcases. It has little showcases. It's not a little place. It's got 15,000 instruments, and it represents every single country and culture in these little stations. And you just and then there's a performance center. I mean, it's logical that Randy West. I mean, we can talk about it. It just makes sense that you should be coming, because I just
because Go ahead, Jake.
No, what I concerned about, man, is that I am from a different generation. I was born in the late 70s. And I look at it now, and I look at my peers, and I say, I really respect all different, types of music and people that play music. But I say, as far as black music is concerned today, number one, it's not covered on BET, any type of sophisticated type of African swing music. And then number two, it just feels like there's been this huge drop off in, like you talked about, these ancestors, the elders being able to tell you, hey, it's the creator, and then you better just survive, and you turn towards making love music, which was essentially love music. But now it just seems like we've had a kind of a break in that chain. There's been some breaks in the link in the chain, and I say to myself, if Randy could sort of articulate anything to younger musicians who are striving for individual sounds, striving for that sound, trying to go back. I mean, is it as simple as saying, go to Africa, study your instrument? I mean, what are the things in today's world that we're growing up in that are challenges that cats need to overcome in order to go back to and know where they came from?
Absolutely, because we don't know. We start off the history of the world with Europe. It's ridiculous. Every child should start off in the school system with Africa.
Right.
And understand, the ancient Egyptians, man, they not only created schools of music, but they made beautiful instruments. You couldn't go to the store and buy a saxophone or trumpet. No, it's made by hand. It's made by love. It's made by tradition, you see. But the other side, up north, they say, no, you got to make a lot of money, and be rich and powerful, et cetera, et cetera. That's not civilization.
No.
The original, yeah. And we are the son and daughter of these people. And, there's an Egyptian word for that. They call it turaf. That means ancestral memory. We all have this ancestral memory, all of us.
How do you pronounce it? How do you pronounce that word?
Turaf, Turath.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, continue, yeah.
That's a web you can be in the North Pole, man. And you can be in touch with your ancestors.
Right.
You see? It's because we all come from the same pot. All of us come out the same pot. And we learn to respect Mother Nature, that we know why we look like we look. And we know that Mother Nature painted us this way, made us look this way, based upon the climate that she created. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Then we stop and say, wait a minute, you're the same people, you're the same folks, And the thing is that Africa has given so much to this country and got no credit. Without Africa, there would be no jazz, no blues, no spiritual, no pop, all those words, hip-hop, you want to call them.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like that majority of the country, I don't even know how to put this, but it's not even represented. I mean, it seems like the true American art form doesn't even want to be recognized by the general population here, which is humbling. But no,
the truth,
The reason I connected originally with Randy was because you're doing a concert, a tribute concert to a compadre of yours from way back when, Melba Liston, and I wanted to. We have a game on the show called Name That Tune, so I wanted to put in this piece of music, Randy, and then have come back and we'll break it down. Okay?
I hope.
We will.
Okay.
Hang tight. Music on the Jake Feinberg Show is brought to you by the Stereo Hospital, 4044 East Speedway. If you have a turntable, tape deck, anything electronic at all, and you need it repaired, you want to pick up some sort of new inventory, go check them out. The Stereo Hospital and Jeff Brucker, 4044 East Speedway, and we really appreciate the support. All right, Mr. Weston, do you want to take a guess at that tune?
That's Tanja.
Good for you, man. You know a lot of the cats don't always come through. You know, I just want to, for the audience here, I want to read off Ahmed Abdul Malik on oud, Candido on congas and also chanting, Ron Carter, the great bassist, Omar Clay, rest in peace, former member of M Boom with Max Roach, and then just John Faddis, Jack Jeffers, and then of course Melba Liston, an arranger and a conductor. And I just, Randy, the floor is yours, man. Why don't you talk about, I do want to say I interviewed Kirk Lightsey last night, and he told me to tell you hello. And he also said the first time that he played with Melba Liston in Detroit, and she turned to him after the gig. And I asked Kirk, I said, when did you first cross paths with Randy? And he said, well, Melba's piano player, they came to Detroit, and the piano player was having a baby, so she went to the hospital. So Lightsey filled in on piano at the end of the set. She looked at him and said, "You want to come to New York?" He said, "Sure." And so she said, "We're leaving at 9 a.m." And then he met you thereafter. But it was just, why don't you talk about Melba and why you believe that this is the right time to do this concert?
Well, Melba Liston was completely overlooked. She was a great woman, great musician, great trombonist, great arranger, great orchestrator, great educator. A very proud African woman who loved her people. You see, that was our connection, number one. We loved our people. We loved African people. So when you had that kind of, you take out the best of us, and that's what Melba would do. Plus, she had the experience of big bands. She experienced it with Gerald Wilson in California. She knew Dexter Gordon when she was 14 years old. So she had more experience than me, by far. Now, on the spirit level, which is what I meant again by how things can happen, because I don't think of such a thing as an accident. I don't believe that, you see. I was at Birdland, because wherever I go, I used to listen to the music. I wasn't a professional musician. I was in the restaurant business with my dad, but we just love music. Wherever we go, all the guys in the neighborhood, we go to Birdland or we go uptown and we sing music. So I heard Dizzy's band featuring Melba Liston, an arrangement she did of My Reverie on the trombone.
Wow.
And she had this enormous sound on the trombone. Big, I never saw a woman play a trombone before. This big, fat sound, So she had that mystic way about her, or some magic on Melba Liston. So when she came off the stage, I introduced myself to her. And I just said, I just love what you did. And I shook her hand. It was some kind of magic. That was the beginning. Now, I think she went back to Los Angeles where she was living at that time. I can't remember years and dates, but then she came back to New York. And I had an opportunity to do a recording for United Artists. Now, I already was writing music about children. I love to watch children. I get a lot of inspiration from children because they're very free. They haven't been conditioned,
Mm-hmm.
So I had 7 waltzes for children that I wanted to record. And I asked Melba, would she do it? She said yes. And I went to her little apartment. By this time, she had moved to Harlem. And she had a little tape recorder. And I sat down, I played each song. I talked about Pan's Waltz was for my daughter, Little Miles was for my son. Ice skating was for children, ice skating and whatnot. And she had on the tape recorder. Then I would play on the piano and just give some ideas about each piece. And then I gave it to her. And she took that recording that we did and she made it such a beautiful arrangement of these songs, And I think we got 4,000 or 5,000 downbeat. That was our first collaboration in 1958. So I discovered that she was for me a genius.
Yes.
But being a black woman, being an African-American woman and not interested in being out front. She was very quiet. She wasn't interested in being out. She's very beautiful, but she had no interest in that. All she wanted to do was write music, you see. So I was blessed, and the Creator brought us together until she died. Whenever I had some arrangements to do, it was Melba Liston. And that was after Ray Copeland, because Ray Copeland was my original arranger. But when I heard Melba, instant love.
Do you, can you talk about, like, in Tanja or on that album, I mean, what made her a great arranger for you? I mean, was it just incorporating the voices, or explain how she sequenced the songs and helped you get your message and what you were trying to communicate across better than if she wasn't there?
Well, you see, I learned from the elders, the older musicians. They didn't just play music. They were storytellers, you see. So people like Ellington and Louis and Billy, all those, that's what I call our royalty. Why? Because they were not only great musicians, but they told stories about African-American life, you see. So if you want to know what it was like in the 20s in New Orleans and Chicago, you listen to Louis Armstrong and you look at the lyrics and the songs that he's singing, you see. So that makes you much more rich. You understand more about your ancestors, what they had to go through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But with Tanja, I developed the concept of telling stories. I write a composition, it's a story. It's a story of a little girl, a little boy, or whatever. It's not just a song, you see. So I was living in Tangier at that time. And Tangier was so incredibly beautiful, okay? And so at the same time, it had a beautiful sun you could see in the morning, like the sun coming from Spain on the other side, you know. It was just like magic. And then during the day, all the merchants would come out with the fruit and the food and the spices, you know. Beautiful magic. So Tanja, which is Arabic for Tangier, was a story of my life in Tangier. So I talked to Melba. I always tell her, what's the story? The story is about my life in this, or so this happened. I met this one. I met Ganala there. I like this kind of food. And I talked about my life there. Then I'd go to the piano, like I always do, play the melody, and then tell us about the songs and just give it to her. Now, we would often share musicians, you see. This particular date is very important for Ahmad Abdul Malik to be there, because he was the one that took me down to North Africa. He would take me downtown Brooklyn when we were kids. And he'd take me down to hear the music of North Africa and the Middle East. So I discovered the oud and the qanun from Malik. So he had to tell the story on the oud about Tangier, because Tangier is in Morocco, you see. So that was the genius of Melba Liston. Every recording we've done, it's a story. And I tell her the story first. Then she takes that incredible ability to take it and make it big, blow it up, you know, make it more beautiful.
No, and I mean, it is phenomenal. And to be honest with you, it was not on my radar either. And I just really, when you look at her resume, or whatever you want to say, and you look at the people that she impacted, and people that admired her, like yourself, just looked up to her. You're just, this woman must have been one of the heaviest cats in the world. What is your memories of the last time you guys collaborated? It was like 1999 or so?
Well, the memory, unfortunately, was by telephone, because what happened, she had gotten ill. And Harvard University wanted to honor us, the Harvard University band. So the whole week was myself and Melba. And we did African Sunrise, where she did the arrangements for when I got the commission of Chicago to do a new composition about Dizzy Gillespie and Machito, who were two of my heroes. Because they brought Africa, you know, putting that stuff together and bring it all over the world, you know. So what happened, Harvard had the concert, and before the concert, I'm trying to remember the name of the band leader. It'll come to me. He called Melba in California, before the concert. And that's when she talked to us, and she was so grateful and thanked everybody, you see. So my last time to see her physically was in Harlem, where she lived. But that was my memory because you hear her voice, that quiet, slow voice, thanking everybody, So because Melba was a high spirit, she was sent here to take care of us.
I wanted to talk to you about, you got the nickname Little Niles. Did I read that correctly, that you got that name from Al McKibben?
No, my son.
Your son is Little Niles, but did you, but did McKibben have some sort of involvement with that, or no?
No.
Where did Little Niles just he was your first son, and you were inspired to give him the name of it?
Well, that was a part of the 7 waltzes that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Our very first recording, which was called Little Niles, 1958.
Did you
see my son, who was called Azadine after that? I named him after the Nile River. So he was 1 year old when I created the piece. So I named it Little Niles because he was part of the series of the 7 waltzes I did for children. My first collaboration with Melba Liston.
How do you feel like in the performance? Are you going to do in your style? I've never seen you perform live, but I just curious. Are you going to tell some stories about Melba or just play tunes? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how to get the audience more understanding of how important a tribute this actually is and her contributions to America's only true art form.
Well, this year is special because the Arts Council of Black Research in Chicago, which is based on Columbia College, they have a whole Melba Liston collection. They just put out an incredible journal. You have to get a copy of it.
Yeah.
And the whole journal is just on Melba Liston. And this is their 34th edition. That's how long they've been in this organization. And this book normally has 3 or 4 artists of African culture. Could be African, Peruvian, African, classical, whatever. This is the first time. This issue just came out this year. First thing. Second thing, that a woman from Florida just put out a beautiful book of children. And it's called Little Melba and Her Big Trombone. I just got it 4 days ago. The woman's name is Catherine Russell Brown, and the illustrator is Frank Morrison. It's beautiful. We're doing a concert from Melba Liston. So it's like Melba's spirit is everywhere. So in this particular concert, I'm going to talk more about Melba. But to answer your question, normally I would say this arrangement is by Melba Liston.
Right. I think the only problem is that when you're dealing with white audiences and people that have been inundated with manufactured music shoved into their ears, they don't realize that true American art music, black music, they're stories. And so you have to, otherwise, so it's just a totally different language. I mean, you've been dealing with this for decades, but would you talk about the story of just the idea of children, the idea of, Tanja, like, will you talk about the genesis of the story before you play the piece?
I always do.
Good. Well,
I always do.
Yeah, that's why you've been doing it for years.
Because I mean, it's complete. You see, I explain to people that, music is something. Every people on the planet's got their music. Music is spirit. But when you tell the story of a piece, then you get more inside. Because that was our tradition. See, when you got them great blues singers, man, them cats are telling stories.
Yeah, and
we come out the blues because that's the oldest foundation. All the masters, Monk and Dizzy and Thatch, all of them, they all play the blues. And they all got their way of playing the blues, but they play the blues, you see. So, and that goes back to Africa again. You see, you tell the story when the healers, to be a musician, you not just only have to be good, you got to be a storyteller.
You know, I just wanted to we have another tune here I wanted to play for you and see if you can peg it, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Afro black. Afro. Black.
All right, Mr. Weston, why don't you give it a shot?
Well, Jake, you won't believe this, or maybe you will.
Yeah.
Now, I've made a lot of recordings, right?
Uh-huh.
I played this piece this morning. Not the same arrangement, but the date we did with Big Black and Frank Haynes. And I played that piece about 2 or 3 times this morning.
Oh, I, you know what? It doesn't surprise me, man.
And that's what I mean by spirit. How you describe that, you know?
I love you, West. No, because I interviewed Black I talked to him 2 days ago, you know, and I love that guy so much, and I know you guys have such a beautiful. That to me, Booker Irvin, Lenny McBrown.
Ooh, royalty.
Booker
Irvin. Oh man.
Ooh, and you're telling me that you woke up this morning and played played Afro Black a couple times.
I'm telling you, and I never do that.
Woo!
I played it this morning. The date we did at the Blue Cornet, which is when I had Frank Haynes on tenor sax, Ray Copeland, Lenny McBrown, Bill Wood, and Big Black. And that was the original. It came from that particular time, you know. Just played it 2 or 3 times. I got to call Black because he called me 3 days ago.
I know he did.
And I returned his call. He didn't get me back, so I'm gonna call him again.
Call him again.
That's amazing.
And you tell him that we were featuring him because I feel like in so many ways, you know, he talked to me about always, you know, I mean, he would frustrate Lenny McBrown because Black always prided himself on being a bebop drummer. And I said, you know, I wanted you to talk about why Black fit into, when you guys have collaborated, why you work so well with Big Black, because at the end of the day, he's in Palm Springs and he's trying to figure out his existence. But that guy, there was a period of time, no more ferocious, fearless player than that cat. And I just wanted you to spend some time talking about how you guys work together so well and how you met each other.
Well, Big Black is from South Carolina, see? And that part of the area is as pure as Africa as you can find anywhere in the United States. Chief Bay is from South Carolina, see? So when they approach the drum, they approach the drum as an African drum, but all the creativity is involved. Also the blues, also the Caribbean, all that stuff is in these people. But Black, it is so powerful. Him and I, we toured Brazil together in 1981. Just piano and drums. Oh. That's all. Oh. I've never done that before, right? Big Black shook up Brazil. I'm serious.
Anybody out there wants to look on YouTube and you go to Soul.
They had never heard anybody play drums like that before. I did a concert with the Boston Pop Symphony Orchestra in 1981, the same year. Melba did the arrangement with the orchestra. John Weezer was the conductor. I composed a piece called Three African Queens. Had Big Black, Frank Gant, Idris Suleiman, and Jamil Nasser. When the concert was over, the people in the symphony orchestra came looking at his hands, trying to understand how he did what he did.
I want to tell you.
I go on and on but Big Black is an African drummer.
I want to tell you
something.
That's
the difference.
I want to tell you, now it's my turn to tell you, you may not believe this or not, but you probably do, is that when I talked to Black, I was asking him, and he brought up that infamous Boston Pops concert, and what he said was, well, first of all, he said he had all the cats in the crowd people were screaming like little kids. But on top of that, he played an additional 8 bars. He said after the piece, you ended a piece, and he continued on for another 8 bars. He said John Williams, who I guess was conducting maybe, he said it was the most it was the most petrified look on anybody's face he's ever seen in his life. But of course, he nailed those last 8 bars. But to me, it was about, he did come from South Carolina. He made his mark where your roots are from, which is the Caribbean. He was down there playing conga drums quite a bit. And I wonder about, you could take us to, what those, I guess, Randy, how can you talk to the audience about Diaspora and what, as far as the rhythms of Jamaica, how you tried to infuse that into your music, and how early in your life you were aware of the solidarity that the drums provided for these slaves?
Mom and Pop, my mother and father. We grew up as Africans in America. That's why I wrote a song called African Village in Bed-Stuy. My father cooked the food, African-American, African-Caribbean cooking. My mother from Virginia, down-home cooking from Virginia food. They had different dialects, but I had to be in a black church every Sunday. They took us to hear the best music. They bring the best music in the house. So we grew up in a completely African environment. All we did was we spoke English. We were in America. Right. But culturally speaking, it was very powerful because our first lesson was that black church. You see, and all the giants before us, they all come out the black church because the first lesson in music is the creator. Music comes from the universe. Music comes from the galaxies. What we call music, and brought down to earth. This doesn't come out the air. And music was healing. My mother and their generation and them people, how they had to suffer, they had to work for nothing, and discrimination, race, you name it, whatnot. They would go in that church, and they would get healed, you see. Mm-hmm. So we grew up with that. We didn't identify, because the system was in such a way you got to be ashamed of Africa. They would always show the worst of Africa. We have no civilization, we have no culture, whatnot. But when we look what Africa has contributed to Americans, to the Americas, it's mind-blowing. I'm still studying. I'm still learning about people I never heard of before. I used to go to Eubie Blake's house, right in Brooklyn. Eubie was 95 then. He used to be 100. I go in and sit in his house, and he would tell me stories about African-American life in Baltimore. He told me stories about those piano battles, you see. Because our folks taught us always listen to the elders. Try to be around the old people. They will give you wisdom.
This is the Jake Feinberg show. I mean, I am reaching out to my elders, not necessarily from my race, but people that can articulate a true vision.
Yeah, from your race, because they're closer to the soil.
Closer to the source.
They have no cell phones and computers and all that stuff. They had to deal with Mother Nature directly.
Right. Well, that's that. But the thing is, I want to ask you about this too, because when I interviewed John Hendricks, I mean, he was very. When Hendrix came out with Evolution of the Blues, it was basically a reinforcement, a reminder to say, hey, the blues came out of the church, gospel, it came out of the church. Maybe the black church is forgetting that the blues came out of the church. And he said that every time he would see Art Tatum and Dizzy, if they weren't going to see each other for a while, but they were playing a club in Columbus or something, as they were walking away, Dizzy would turn around or Basie would turn around and say, don't forget about the blues. Don't forget about the blues, and how important is the blues to African music? You mentioned before that the blues came from Africa.
Exactly. What we call the blues is going on for thousands of years in Africa. And each society has what we call, we name it the blues, and it's older than the word blues. It's simply African music. And why the music is so powerful? Because the music is very involved with spirit. It's very much involved with truth. It has that African pulse. And it's communication. No other music can you say, I love my baby, she don't love me. That's the blues. You'd have to read a dictionary or an encyclopedia to get the message. So we communicated because of direct communication. That's why the blues is so powerful. And that's why all the giants, I don't care what Duke Ellington, he wrote for the Queen of England, he wrote for Eurasian Suite, the High Master Ellington, but you always hear the blues underneath. Count Basie, you always hear the blues. Because that's our music. We survive because that's Africa that was brought to the Americas, and that's how we were able to communicate when we couldn't speak the languages that controlled us, you see. So the blues is very important, but it's an ancient music. When I spend time with the Ganawa in Morocco, those black people, I hear the original blues. You go up in all different parts of Africa. You go to Congo, you go here and there, you hear the blues in its original form. Simplicity, but simplicity with spirit and soul.
Beautiful.
Coming out of Mother Africa.
Just as we wrap up here in part one with Mr. Randy Weston, can you talk about the other people that are going to be on this bill celebrating the career and life of Melba Liston?
Yeah, well, it's going to be Manhattan School of Music Orchestra. Okay, and I'm bringing with me TK Blue. We've been together for so many years. My musical director, he's conductor, saxophone, flute. He's played with the African groups in Paris, in Africa. He's toured Africa, so he's fantastic. Neil Clark is a percussionist. He spent time with Mary McKeever's daughter. He played with it, and he's in Belafonte for 13 years. Alex Blake, who can't come this time, but Santi Debriano, who's from Panama, like Alex Blake, is also. So they bring the African Panamanian rhythms when they play, you see. So, and they're going to be with the orchestra. And we're going to celebrate Melba Liston.
Well, Randy, I'm going to reach out to you again because I would love to have you back on the show and do a part two. I think there's a lot more I need to learn, and I think the education is important for future generations. I wish you all the best health.
Thank you.
And just keep kicking butt, man. It was so great to talk to you on live radio, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't know what I said. Send me a copy of the show, please, huh?
All right, I'm going to need your email at some point, too. So hang on, I'll get it from you. But listen, man, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you.
All right, brother. It's the Jake Feinberg Show, and we'll see you all next week on Power Talk 1210. See you later.
I've been around the world a few times, but I don't understand. I just like to play the blues. It's not all the money that I want. I just like to play the blues. And I like for everybody to get together and all of us play the blues. Let's have a good time. Because blues is where it's at. I'm telling you, I love it. I can't help but play it. You know, a gig. And ain't got no money, or no gig, whatever you call it. You ain't got nothing but the blues no way, baby. Or either the old lady going to do yagging and you're arguing with you, telling you what you get up and do something. And go to the steel mill, and you know you're going to see, and that's usually the blues too. So sometimes you really don't know what to do. And when you get worried, all you can...
Southern Arizona's official station